Tom is the author of a very popular book called Why Doctors Don't Get Rich: How You Can Create Freedom with Passive Income Investing. And while I'll say this book is about doctors who don't get rich, it's really for anybody struggling in life in general, but more specifically in their financial life, and for those who really want to way out of the rat race. And in this book, you're going to learn how to think like the rich, make money work for you, use leverage to your advantage, protect your wealth, pay less taxes, avoid costly mistakes, control your time, and choose your ideal life. Everything you need to succeed is in this book. I absolutely love this book. So with that, Tom, it's great to have you on the show.
John, glad to see your face. I know we talk a few times during the year, but I haven't seen that smiling face for a long time.
It's always great to see you. Always good to see you in person, too. And I hope we can get together sooner than later.
Absolutely.
So, Tom, I like to start the show in the beginning with sort of a macro picture. And in this case, a macro picture around real estate and any thoughts that you have on the economy. But before we do that, you've got to share the story of you being the first person to buy Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, at a car wash. I mean, this is a classic story. Please share.
All right. And I probably have no other accomplishments in life, but this one, is one I just fell into. So, yeah, to keep the story short, one day I was running errands. My truck was dirty. I took it to the car wash. And I'll tell you, at that time, I was reading a lot of books on real estate, personal development, anything that would help me move forward. So I handed off my car, went inside to pay my bill, and on the back shelf with a handwritten sign said books for sale. Now this was a car wash. You don't sell books at car washes. And it was this purple and gold book, and I could see the word rich across the top. I said, let me see that thing. And it said, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what the rich teach their kids about money that the poor and middle class do not. And I figured anybody that was that aggressive had to have something to say to me. So I bought the book, read it. And I started reading the book at about 11:30 that night. Couldn't put it down. Finished it at 3:30. Wow. Didn't have anybody to tell. Eventually told some friends, said I'd really read what I thought was the best personal finance book I had ever read. Sent it off to some friends, and eventually, quite honestly, we called the publisher because we wanted to know who this Kiyosaki guy was. We'd never heard of him before. And the publisher on the end of the phone line that answered the phone call was Robert Kiyosaki. He had self-published that book, and we went out to visit him, and we've been friends for the past 27 years. But the kicker was that that was the first book that had ever been purchased of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I actually went back the next day and bought the lot of the rest of them to give out to friends. So. Yeah, that was kind of the first one of those bought, and I guess 44 million or whatever later. It's done pretty well.
It's amazing. Correct me if I'm wrong. You were in med school selling products for Amway to make money. Is that correct?
I was out of med school.
Oh, you were,
and I was in Amway. Yeah,
interesting.
Great, learning how to sell, learning how to be told no. You're a doctor, not a lot of people tell you no, right? So I was eating my humble pie and learning that stuff, and it made some sense, but what they had was a great kind of personal development system. I learned a lot about selling and a lot about, what helped me in the future.
Yeah, I started my career. Well, I shouldn't say I started my career, but I started with multi-level marketing a long time ago when I was like 18 years old. I completely failed, but boy, did I learn a lot. It was a great way to kind of get your feet wet in the market. So didn't that book then float up through the Amway chain to the point where they loved it so much that Robert was the keynote speaker at a national convention? Am I getting this correct?
Absolutely. We got it, and I gave it to some of the Amway folks that were kind of up high, and they got it to higher up people. And, eventually he spoke to, I don't know if there was 20, 30, 40,000 people in that arena, and I was there. And so I think that, and they have what's called a tools program. So they recommend books. Well, when a guy speaks on stage and the head guy from Amway says, you should get this book, there's 20,000 books right away. So it launched things and got him noticed by some TV personalities, and things moved on from there.
That's amazing. And it all started at a car wash.
Dad Radio Show. Today I'm broadcasting from Phoenix, Arizona, not Scottsdale, Arizona. They're close, but they're completely different worlds. And we have a special guest today. Definition of intelligence is if you agree with me, you're intelligent. And so this gentleman is very intelligent. I've done his show before also, but very seldom do you find somebody who lines up on all counts. And it's a Mr. Clay Clark. He's a friend of a good friend, Eric Trump. But we're also talking about money, bricks, and how screwed up the world can get in a few and a half hour. So Clay Clark is a very intelligent man, and there's so many ways we could take this thing. But I thought, since you and Eric are close, Trump, what were you saying about what Trump can't, what Donald, who's my age, and I can say or cannot say?
Well, first of all, I have to honor you, sir. I want to show you what I did to one of your books here. There's a guy by the name of Jeremy Thorne, who was my boss at the time. I was 19 years old, working at Faith Highway. I had a job at Applebee's, Target, and DirecTV. And he said, "Have you read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad?" And I said, "No." And my father, may he rest in peace, he didn't know these financial principles. So I started reading all of your books and really devouring your books. And I went from being an employee to self-employed, to the business owner, to the investor. And I owe a lot of that to you. And I just wanted to take a moment to tell you, thank you so much for allowing me to achieve success. And then I'll tell you all about Eric Trump. But I just want to tell you, thank you, sir, for changing my life.
But not only that, Clay, thank you, but you become an influencer. More than anything else, you've evolved into an influencer where your word has more and more power. So that's why I congratulate you on becoming. Because as you know, there's a lot of fake influencers out there too, or bad influencers.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm glad you and I agree so much, and thanks for reading my books.
Yeah.
That's the greatest thrill for me today. Not a thrill, but recognition is when people, young men especially, come up and say, "I read your book, changed my life. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this."
I learned at the Academy, Kings Point in New York, acta non verba. Watch what a person does, not what they say.
Hi, I'm Ryan Wimpy.
And I'm Rachel Wimpy, and the name of our business is Tip Top Canine.
Our business is a dog training business. We help people with behavioral issues and teach their dog how to listen. When I was learning to become a dog trainer, we didn't learn anything about internet marketing or advertising or anything at all. Just dog training. And that's what's so great about working with Clay and his team, because they do it all for us.
So that we can focus on our passion, and that's training dogs. Clay and his team here, they're so enthusiastic. Their energy is off the charts. Never a dull moment here at Thrive.
We've been working with Clay and his team for the last 5 months, 2 of which have been our biggest months ever. 1, our biggest gross by 35%. Clay's helped us make anything from brochures to stickers, new business cards, new logos, scripts for phones, script for email, script for text message, scripting for everything.
How I would describe the weekly meetings with Clay and his team are awesome. They're so effective. It's worth every minute. Things get done. We'll ask for things like different flyers, and they're done before our hour is up. So it's just awesome, extremely effective.
If you don't use Clay and his team, you're probably going to be pulling your hair out, or you're going to spend half of your time trying to figure out the online marketing game and producing your own flyers and marketing materials, print materials, all the stuff like that. You're really losing a lot as far as lost productivity and lost time. Not having a professional do it, it has a real sense of urgency and that actually knows what they're doing when you already have something that's your core focus that you already know how to do.
You would also be missing out with all the time and financial freedom that you would have working with Clay and his team.
We would recommend Clay and his team to other business owners because they need to be working on their business, not just trying to figure out the online game, which is complex and changing daily. So no one has a marketing team too. Most people don't. They can't afford one, and their local web guy or a local person that they know probably can't do everything that a whole team and a whole floor of people can do in hours and not just weeks or months. There's a definite sense of urgency with Clay and his team. I used to have to ride other web people, really ride them to get stuff done, and stuff is done so fast here, and there's a real sense of urgency to get it done.
Hey, I'm Ryan Wimpy. I'm originally from Tulsa, born and raised here. I've definitely learned a lot about life design and making sure the business serves you. The linear workflow for us and getting everything out on paper and documented is really important. Like we have workflows that are kind of all over the place, so having linear workflow and seeing that mapped out on multiple different boards is pretty awesome. That's really helpful for me. The atmosphere here is awesome. I definitely just stared at the walls, figuring out how to make my facility look like this place. This place rocks. It's invigorating. The walls are super, it's just very cool. The atmosphere is cool. The people are nice. It's a pretty cool place to be. very good learning atmosphere. I literally want to model it and steal everything that's here at this facility and basically create it just on our business side. Clay is hilarious. I literally laughed so hard that I started having tears yesterday.
Get ready to enter the Thrive Time Show.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top. Teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of five, that's why I'm a dive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the CNC up on your radio. And now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom.
Yes, 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 and yes, Thrive Nation. Today is a very special occasion because you never know, Josh Wilson, who you are going to meet at a Trump Hotel room. You never know when you go to the Trump Hotel in Chicago. You never know who you're going to meet there. And I met the man and the myth, the guy who is behind the E-Myth series of books that absolutely changed the way that I approach business. Michael Gerber, the author of the E-Myth. I met him there in the Chicago hotel, and I asked him if he would be on the show. He made a poor life choice, and he's decided to be here with us. Michael Gerber, how are you, sir?
Delighted to be here.
Oh, wow. You are just absolutely a living legend, and your book helped so many people. But before we get into your book, and specifically Chapter 5 of your book, could you share with the listeners where you grew up and kind of your background, just so they know that you weren't born at the top of the mountain?
Well, hear me, nobody is born at the top of the mountain. I certainly wasn't. I was born in New Jersey, in Elizabeth, New Jersey, of a couple of beautiful Jewish parents, and part of a growing family. In 1936, in the heart of the Depression, just as the horror was taking place in Europe, and just before the Holocaust was to take place in Europe, I grew up as a little boy in that season without any understanding of what was going on in the world around me. My parents decided to move from New Jersey to California in 1947, and we did move to Anaheim, California, and I was raised in Anaheim, California, and my journey started in Anaheim, California, and my journey continued for the rest of my life to the point where you speak to me here today. And I could go into all of that, but it is such an uninteresting story about Michael Gerber, where he was, what he did, how he did it, why he didn't do it, what he could have done.
So let me ask you this. When did you kind of start to figure out what you wanted to do professionally? What age were you when you had that idea?
I didn't. I never focused on what I wanted to do. I was a jazz saxophone player. I was an encyclopedia salesman. I did this, I did that, I did that, I did this. All the time that I was doing that, I was reading and reading and studying philosophy, spirituality, music, jazz, all the stuff anybody would ever be attracted to, until I hit the age of 41. Now hear me, all of this started, Clay, then, at the age of 41.
41.
And at 41, a friend of mine who owned a small advertising agency in Silicon Valley, California, asked me if I'd meet with one of his clients who was having difficulty converting leads that my brother-in-law's ad agency was creating for him into sales. And I told my brother-in-law, Ace, that's his name, that's still his name, God bless him. I said, Ace, I don't know anything about business, and I certainly don't know anything about high-tech business. He said, Michael, you know more than you think you do. Just meet with the guy. Let's see what happens. So Ace dropped me off to meet with a guy. We'll call him Bob. Bob had a high-tech product. He had sales engineers having difficulty selling that product. And Ace dropped me off and said, Bob, Ace, Michael, Guys, get to know each other. I'll be back in an hour. So obviously, Bob said to me, Michael, what do you know about my business? And I said, nothing, Bob, because I didn't.
Right.
And he said, well, what do you know about our product? I said, less than that, Bob. And obviously, he's looking at his watch and thinking, I've got an hour with this guy. He doesn't know anything. What in the hell am I going to do with him? But instead, he said, so if you don't know anything about my business and you don't know anything about my product, how can you help me? And I said, I haven't a clue, Bob, but we've got an hour to kill. So let's start so I can ask you some questions. And that's how all this started. I began to ask Bob questions, and I realized, despite the fact that he owned a small business, despite the fact that he was the CEO of a small business, despite the fact that he thought of himself as an entrepreneur, starting that small business, every answer Bob gave me was anecdotal. There was no facts underlying anything he said. So I'd ask more, and then I'd ask more, and then I'd ask more, and then I'd ask more. And I suddenly realized I did know something about business. I knew that selling is a system, and I knew that Bob didn't have one.
Thrive Nation, that deserves a quick timeout right there. That is absolutely huge. In order to create time freedom and financial freedom, again, in order to create both time and financial freedom, you must create systems that are both repeatable and quickly learnable. You have to create sales systems that other people can implement who are not you. And that way you can quickly train new members of your team how to create a repeatably, predictably successful system for sales. Otherwise, again, it always comes down to you doing the selling. You've got to create repeatable systems that wow the customers each and every time. So I would ask you today, specifically, when somebody calls your business phone, how is the phone answered? And if you don't know the answer to that, make a call script for answering your phones. You need to have a call script for answering your phones. You need to have a pre-written email that you send to new potential clients. You need to have a frequently asked questions script, so that way when anybody calls you and asks your new hire frequently asked questions, they're going to have all the answers. You want to think about every aspect of your system, and you want to make it scalable and repeatable. You want to make sure that your on-hold music is music that is going to wow the customer each and every time. You want to make sure that every interaction with your customer is, in fact, scalable. It is repeatable, and that it does wow the customers.
And I told Bob, without a selling system, you're not going anywhere with this. He said, what's a selling system? I said, just think of it as a script. First you say this, then you say that, then you say this, then you say that.
Oh, yeah.
First he does this, then he does that, then he does this, then he does that. And in the process of doing this and doing that and saying this and saying that, something happens, and you can predict what that's going to be after you've gotten it down, really gotten it down into a groove.
Into a groove.
Into a groove. And he said to me, well, can you create that for me? And I said, of course. So when Ace came to pick me up, he said, what happened? I said, I just got a job. He said, what do you mean a job? I said, I'm now a consultant. He said, what do you mean a consultant? I said, I'm now consulting Bob on creating a selling system. He said, what do you know about that? I said, I guess everything. And that was the beginning of it. And that was the beginning of this. That was the beginning of E-Myth. That was the beginning of everything I've done since that point in time.
Remember, keep this planted firmly in your mind, that entrepreneurship is simply solving a problem for your ideal and likely buyers in exchange for compensation. Again, entrepreneurship is simply solving a problem in exchange for the compensation that you seek for your ideal and likely buyers. Think about all of the problems that you can solve for your ideal and likely buyers. Make a list of all the problems that you can solve for your ideal and likely buyers, and offer your ideal and likely buyers those solutions in exchange for the money you seek, and you will create both time and financial freedom. It is that easy, my friends. It is unbelievable. Find a problem that you can solve for your ideal and likely buyers, and then make the system repeatable. Make it scalable, and make sure that it wows your ideal and likely buyers. Make sure that the business can work without you, and you shall experience both time and financial freedom.
So you might say, I didn't come to the realization of why I was here on the planet until I turned 40.
40 years old. Now, let me ask you, at the age of 40, you began to have these epiphanies, discovering that many of the people out there, most of our listeners, most people on the planet, we have bought into this thing called the E-myth, where we've bought into this wrong mindset to business, or this wrong way about looking at business. Can you explain what the E-myth is for people out there that don't know what the E-myth stands for?
Sure. The E-myth is the entrepreneurial myth. It's based upon the assumption that everybody believes anybody and everybody who starts their own business is an entrepreneur. And the fact is they're not. What I learned with Bob and then with Mary and then with Judy and the various little companies that I worked on behalf of Ace's ad agency, until the point it became obvious that I was going to do this on my own, not in Ace's ad agency, because Ace didn't believe in what I was saying either. But I came to realize that none of them were entrepreneurs. They were all what I came to call technicians suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure. True. All they did was create a job for themselves.
True.
So every small business is a job for the idiot who started it. And now they're working for a really big idiot themselves.
Gosh.
And they're saying to themselves, yeah, but this isn't working. And of course it's not working, because they didn't design it to work. They didn't build it to work. They didn't launch it to work. They didn't grow it to work.
Right.
How to do that, design it, build it, launch it, and grow it, is what the E-myth is all about.
If you're out there today and you found yourself creating a business that has created financial freedom for you, but you don't know how to escape the wage cage, and you don't know how to actually create time freedom to go along with that financial freedom, that's why we have our in-person workshops and the one-on-one coaching. To learn more, go to thrivetimeshow.com. That's thrivetimeshow.com, and click on the conferences button. And there's no upsells at our workshops, and you're going to be seated by real entrepreneurs, people that actually own successful companies who are now where you once were. These are real entrepreneurs that needed to learn how to create both time and financial freedom. And many of our conference attendees come back year after year because now that they have created time and financial freedom, they want to refine the systems to make them even more efficient, or they want to receive a refresher course. Maybe they want to get re-inspired. But it's really awesome because you're going to be seated by real entrepreneurs just like you who own a company that is already doing well, but they just want to create both time and financial freedom at this point. And so I would encourage you to check it out today. Go to thrivetimeshow.com and then click on the conferences button and book your conference tickets today. And don't let finances be an obstacle here. If you're in a tight spot, we have scholarship options available. Essentially, we'll meet you where you're at financially to make sure that the finances, the financial obligations of purchasing a thrivetimeshow.com ticket are not going to exceed your ability to pay for them. And so without any further ado, back to my interview with Michael Gerber. What I find is that some of us think that we know what we're doing. So some of us, we think, so when I was building my first company, DJ Connection, before Brent Lawless gave me your book, I was having quote-unquote success. I was selling a lot of wedding packages with DJConnection.com. I was booking thousands of events. I was winning awards. I was being told I was the best entertainer. My company was great. And when I read chapter 5 of your book, you mentioned that I was creating a job and not a business. And I started contemplating, well, what's the difference between busyness and a business? Because they're spelled slightly differently, but busyness, there's the Y in there. And I don't know why I'm in business when I'm busyness. Busyness means I don't know why. And then business means a business exists to serve me. There's an I in business. So a business exists to serve me. Okay. And I had to read that chapter over and over and over. And you challenged me in the Chicago hotel room at Trump Hotel. You challenged me to read the chapter again. So I read the book again. I read it. I went through all my highlights and I took photos of them and I sent it to your wife because I wanted you to know that I had read it again. And so I would like to go into, if we can, to chapter 5 of your book and to page 51. We're going to open up the book, E-Myth Revisited, where you wrote, every adolescent business reaches a point where it pushes beyond its owner's comfort zone. For me, it was DJConnection.com. The boundary within which he feels secure in his ability to control his environment and outside of which he begins to lose control. That's why I wanted to DJ 250 events, Michael, before your book saved me. I literally did 250 events in 1 year. I personally made the playlist for every wedding. I did everything. Tons of money, no time to spend it. It was awesome and terrible at the same time, and the world kept cheering. The world kept cheering. Help our listeners out there that are stuck in this adolescent phase where we want to control everything, or we want to abdicate and assign items to members of our team who are poorly trained, and then we never follow up. So we either want to do it ourselves, or we want to assign the project to somebody on our team who is poorly trained and poorly equipped to have success, and then we do a poor job of following up. Help the listeners out there, my friend.
So the evolution of a company from infancy to adolescence to maturity is an absolutely universal process. Most small companies, we're talking about small companies, we're talking about a hamburger stand, we're talking about a meat market, we're talking about anything and everything that depends upon somebody doing some work. The butcher does the work, the gardener does the work, the hairdresser does the work, the poodle clipper does the work. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's work to be done. There's work to be done in every single business on the planet. Now, some of that work is very unsophisticated. Some of that work is very sophisticated. But despite whether sophisticated or unsophisticated, every single small business owner who starts a business is actually that technician. The hairdresser starts a beauty shop. The guy behind the microphone starts a thing behind the microphone. A chiropractor starts a chiropractic practice, and so forth and so forth. Well, of course they do, because that's what they do. That's what they know how to do.
You're correct. Everybody starts that way. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. So infancy is that startup. Infancy is the very beginning.
Okay.
Infancy was that joyous time, Clay, at the very beginning of what you were doing behind that microphone.
Oh, yeah.
Where you just shined. And you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
You just shine.
Oh, it was awesome. It was a new idea, and it was exciting, and I did it myself, and people cheered. I got tipped.
You got up every day. You got up every day. You got up every day.
Oh,
you
tell me
did
the
this,
story.
You did that.
Oh, it's so
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just like the woman in the beauty parlor. She gets up every day and she goes to work and she takes out her brush and her needles and her thing and she goes to work, and the lady that comes in, and then the lady who follows, and then the lady who follows, and they schmooze and they talk and they dance and they play and they do whatever they do, and the lady who comes in loves her, and the other one loves her, and the other one loves her, and so forth and so on, and then she gets busy. That's where adolescence steps in. Your company grew beyond just the beginning phase. So suddenly you've got to do this, because if you stop doing this, you're out of business.
Oh, yeah.
That's the deal. If you stop doing this, you're out of business. And that's where adolescence begins to take its toll. In other words, you got to get this done, you got to get that done, and you can't do everything anymore. There's too much to do, too little time to do it, and also you don't know everything that needs to be done. So you got to learn everything that needs to be done. Now you're stretched.
Quality's going down. You're stretched thin. The quality's going down. You're dropping the ball. You're making money, but now you're kind of offering shoddy work, shoddy quality. You start to lose the excitement about your business. You feel trapped in your business, Michael, right? I mean, you feel trapped.
Yeah, and your kids begin to wonder, where's dad? Where's dad? Where's mom?
Oh, no,
where's mom?
Now you're just
How
being
come
mean.
you're never home? How come you're always working? How come you're always working? Well, I gotta work. I created this thing that depends upon me because I'm the star. So understand, it's that star issue. I'm the star. It won't work unless Clay Clark does it. It won't work unless Michael E. Gerber does it. I'm the star. That's when the business begins to fail. And it begins to fail big time. And what happens is, instead of doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that, instead of all of a sudden having people doing it, but they're not doing it as well as you do it, You had to bring people in, you had to bring people in, you had to bring in a bookkeeper, you had to bring in a whatever. They're not doing it as well as you did it. So finally you realize they don't work as well as you do. So you let them go.
Let them go.
And when you let them go, now it's still there waiting to be done.
And now you get to do it yourself again because you've created a job and not a business.
Right. So what do? You get small again.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody does. They grow and then they shrink. And then it goes to adolescence again, and then they shrink. And finally, they're through. So last year, there were roughly 550,000 small companies that shut their doors in this country. 550,000 small businesses that shut their doors, not because of the pandemic. You understand the pandemic, yeah, that's a problem. But understand the problem I'm talking about is a pandemic and has been a pandemic for generations.
It's worse than a pandemic. What you're talking about is worse than a pandemic. This happens every year, every decade, over and over and over. And what I find, and I'd like to dive into, I'd like to dive into this with you. I have a lot of people that I have been friends with over the years who they start hiring everybody, like you were just talking about. They begin hiring people, and they begin to abdicate, but they think what they're doing is to delegate. They think that they're delegating when they're actually abdicating. Could you talk about this? I see it with accounting almost 100% of the time, where people, they bring in someone to do their accounting and they do not follow up with them because they're supposed to be the expert. I mean, can you help the listeners out there and maybe tell us what the difference is between abdicating and delegating?
Very simple. Abdication is where you turn over responsibility for something and there is no system. You turn over responsibility for a result, but there is no system. There's no method by which that result is intended to be produced. You understand, when McDonald's was first formulated, the very first franchise store, the franchise prototype in Des Plaines, Illinois, Ray Kroc went to work on that McDonald's hamburger stand to perfect the systems in that hamburger store so that whomever he hired would master the system. Master the system. The system was the solution, not the person he hired. In every case you're talking about, where we abdicate accountability, we're effectively turning over the responsibility to produce a result to somebody who's going to do it whatever way they do it. And every single person we turn it over to does it differently. So there is no way we do it. And if there is no way we do it, there is no, in quotes, McDonald's. There is no franchise. There is no turnkey system. There is no evolution of a methodology that identifies a brand from everyone else.
You, when you talk about a system, this might sound mean, and Michael, please feel free to argue with me if you need to here. You can straighten me out here. But I know people that say to me, business owners who I meet at conferences or who I meet in my building, they'll say, Clay, the system is Kara. The system is Steve. The system is Josh. They're assuming that a person is the system because the person does the job. And then that key person who's been with them since day 1 or maybe day 10 or maybe month 6, they move on. But I have found since implementing your approach to business, working on a business, the E-Myth approach, I now am no longer dependent upon personalities. So when somebody feels like it's time to move on, I can encourage them to move on with great joy. I mean that I can be happy for them. I don't have to hold them hostage, and they don't hold me hostage.
Because the system stays here.
Yeah.
Because you own the system. You own the brand. You own the methodology. You own the ability to produce the result that you have designed your company to produce again and again and again and again. So when people tune in, when people come in, when people come to the store, when people go online, no matter where it is, online, offline, it doesn't make any difference. It produces exactly the result they came to get because it is an intelligent system. That's the key to the E-Myth. That's one of the critical keys to the E-Myth. It's the system, stupid.
I have before I let Josh ask you some questions, Josh with Living Water Irrigation is here. Now, I want to brag on Josh. He's grown a business from $300,000 in revenue to he's on pace to hit $3 million this year. But last year, Josh, what were your sales last year? What would you end the year at? $1.8 million. Mm-hmm. He's been a client of mine for a long time. And he's probably been tired of me referencing you. He's probably tired of it. He's probably saying, stop referencing. This guy doesn't even exist, probably. He thinks you're probably like a mythical person. But I show him the book cover. He Googles you. He verifies. He knows you're real now. And now he's here with you. And he has some questions for you, Michael. So, Josh, what questions do you have for the great one, Mr. Michael Gerber?
Well, Michael, first and foremost, thank you so much. It really honestly is an honor to speak to you. Due to you and all the coaching from Clay, it's truly, sincerely changed my life and the trajectory of it. So first and foremost, I'm thankful and grateful, sir.
Well, thank you.
Beyond that, my first question would be, what is the easiest way for us as a company? You know, we're having some pretty exponential growth and we're really excited about it. But what's the easiest way for us to define our biggest limiting factor? And for other business owners out there, what's the easiest way to actually define that, Michael?
Well, your biggest limiting factor is what keeps you from producing what you hope to produce. Your biggest limiting factor is what keeps you from producing what you intend to produce, what you hope to produce, what your dream says you're there to produce. And so everything starts with a dream, a vision, a purpose, and a mission. That's the most critical thing you have to do at the beginning of all of this. I have a dream, I have a vision, I have a purpose, I have a mission. In 1977, when I started this thing that I'm so crazed about, when I started in 1977, we started with a dream, a vision, a purpose, and a mission. Our dream then, literally, in quote, was to transform the state of small business worldwide. Our vision was to invent the McDonald's of small business consulting. Our purpose was that every single small business owner who was attracted to our paradigm and implemented it could be as successful as a McDonald's franchisee or even more. And our mission was to invent the business development system that made our dream, our vision, our purpose possible. So we started our company, we started with the dream, a vision, a purpose, and a mission. So the first thing I would say to you, what's your dream? What's your vision? What's your purpose? What's your mission?
That is phenomenal.
Until you then can say our dream is our, not mine, our dream, our vision, our purpose, our mission, and explicate them clearly to every single person who joins you in your company, you'll not truly begin to grow it to the degree it's waiting to be grown.
So you want our listeners to define their dream, their mission, and their purpose. Am I correct, sir? Their dream, the mission, and the purpose?
Vision.
Dream, vision, purpose, mission. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. The first 4 steps of what I call the eightfold path. First, my dream. My dream is the great result we're here to produce. Second, my vision. My vision is the form our dream is going to take place on the street. Our purpose must truly transform the state of our individual customer's mindset about who he or she is and what he or she can expect from an economic, social, relational, familial life. And finally, our mission is to invent the system. And it's always to invent the system. The mission is always about the system at the heart of our great growing enterprise. So you see, what I'm saying is, if you take this little business of yours, just that I'm saying this little business of yours that where you're behind the microphone, where you're reaching out to your audience, et cetera, and so forth. And you take that dream, vision, purpose, and mission, you can immediately begin to see that the end result is always worldwide.
When you were growing the E-Myth program and the book and the team, the movement, and you defined your dream and your vision and your purpose and your mission, and you began to craft the book, to write the book, to work with clients, to do your research, how long did it take you, Mr. Michael Gerber, to go from consulting your first client at the age of 41 to penning the E-Myth Revisited book? How many years was that?
The first E-Myth book, called The E-Myth, Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It, was published in 1985. I started my company in 1977.
It's 8 years. 8 years of data and research.
Before that book would ever been written, I had to do it. And so the first years, from 77, 78, 79, 80, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I was working on the Michael Thomas Corporation to design, build, launch, and grow our turnkey capability to transform the state of small business worldwide.
The first 8 years you were working on the business, the first 8 years. And
well, the first 8 years and then every year after that. So you got to understand, it's, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Everybody wants to get it now. Everybody wants to get it now. Everybody wants to get it. Can I do this in a year and a half? Can I do this in 6 minutes? Can I do this tomorrow? Everybody is simply stupid, Clay, when they think about this, because you can't do anything right now. It takes time to absorb what, in fact, the implications of what you're setting out to do really are. Because if I'm seriously saying I'm going to transform the state of small business worldwide, that means by doing what we're planning on doing, the business failure rate is going to decrease exponentially. The business success rate is going to increase exponentially. The experience of people inside of companies is going to be transformed radically. Lives are going to be transformed in the process. That's how big this is. And that's why it can't be done in a minute.
I do not want to be even slightly negative. I want to just be very practical.
Be as negative as you want to be.
Well, I want to bring this up because I know that you look like you're 22 years old. I mean, you're a young man, but you've been doing this a long time. And there are certain people who do what Thomas Edison once wrote. He calls it hallucination. Thomas Edison once famously wrote, he said, vision without execution is hallucination. Vision without execution is hallucination. What percentage of the time do you sit down and meet somebody, and do you find yourself saying, I wish they would just implement? I mean, at what point do you say, I just wish they would implement? I mean, is it a third of the time that people seek knowledge and they don't want to implement? Is it a tenth of the time? How often do people seek the knowledge? You give them the knowledge, but they don't want to implement? Because I hear so many E-Myth success stories. I just want to know what percentage of people get the knowledge and they don't want to implement?
You have to understand, anybody can come to me at any point in time, and they do. And they could say, I want to do this, or I want to do that. And I say, absolutely extraordinary. And I said, and the good news is there's a process for doing that. And the better news is it's a universal process, meaning you don't have to invent it. It already exists. It's what I call the eightfold path. Step one, step two, just like I've just done. Now, what happens at that point is what shapes what happens next. Because what happens at that point is, person might say, yeah, but I don't want to do all that stuff. All I want to do is, all I want to do.
All I want to do. I don't want that stuff.
I hear you. You don't want to do all that stuff. And I said, you have no idea what it takes to do what you just told me you wish to do. But I know exactly what it takes. And the wonderful news is we've got a method to make it possible for you to mature in the process of discovering the truth about what it is you're setting out to do. Step 1, step 2, and I go back and back.
Got it.
Back. What they do in that process will tell you everything you need to know. We get to change that. But you understand the only way we get to change that is take responsibility for our own life. Not for their lives, not for hers, not for his, not for its, not for the community, not for the state, not for the government, not for the federal, not for the international. Our life, my life. I've got to go to work on my life. Just in exactly the way they went to work on me in boot camp. Now hear me, I got to put myself into boot camp. And I've got to get all of the bullshit out of me. So I can suddenly discover what truth means. We don't even know what the word truth means.
Well, truth is offensive. Truth is, it hurts. The truth is something people can't handle. I mean, when you sit down and you explain to a young whippersnapper, some people come to our conferences and they want to know how search engines work. So you sit down and you explain to them how the Google algorithm works and you show them examples and they go, well, I don't want to have to do all of that. Is there an easy way? And you say, no, you can't. I won't get too nerdy into it, but you tell them you have to have the most original HTML content. You have to have a canonically compliant website. You have to have the most reviews and the most mobile compliance. There's 4 variables. And they say, canonical, that's multiple syllables. And
yeah,
I would have,
me, Clay, it's not you have to, it's it has to. So understand, not you have to, it has to. What you have to do is to come face to face and understand how little you actually know. So if you were to take the average human being in these United States today, if you were to take everybody out there on the street, who's burning everything down, and have them take a test. Now, I'm not talking about a hard test. I'm talking about a simple test.
Simple test.
I'm talking about your A, B, C's. I'm talking about your 1, 2, 3s. If you were to put them through that process, the vast majority of them would fail. Absolutely abject failure. And then you've got to say, if you don't even know that, what leads you to presume that you can tell me how to live my life? Time for boot camp. So my point is, one of the greatest things that anybody could possibly do for America is put everybody into boot camp. Everybody goes to boot camp. You got to have a boot camp in whatever you're deciding to do. You got to have a boot camp because that's where people demonstrate who they are and what they know and what they do and what they don't and what they're not willing to do. Boot camp, boot camp. You got to open them up.
Tears are weakness leaving the body, as my uncle used to tell me. I think what you're telling us is mind-altering for some people, and I want to respect your time. I had a couple more questions on part 1 of this interview. I wanted to ask you specifically, on page 67 of your book, you wrote something to me, the reader, to all the readers. You wrote this to us. You said, you did the best you could. It's time to get on with your life, to build your business in an enlivening way. What does it mean to build your business in an enlivening way?
What does it mean to enliven? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, because it's a word that I don't hear people use.
Well, it means to bring true life to it. In short, when folks come to work, they're coming to invest their life for a particular period of time to engage in work with the intent of producing a result. It's going to add value to every single person associated with that work. That means your customer. That means the guy at the desk next door. It means the guy you report to. It means the woman in the accounting department. It means everybody and anybody who's joined here come here every day. It's like a prayer at the beginning of the day. Every day to enliven the experience. Come closer to God. So I've been given to say of late, if we're born in the image of God, and in Genesis it says we are, then it means we're born to create. God is the creator. So if we're born in the image of God, it means we're born to create. To create what? To create a world fit for God. Well, what would a world fit for God look like? Well, you can begin by reading the 10 Commandments. And you suddenly begin to see that we can engage in a way to enliven our experience of being committed, zealously engaged human beings, creators all, here to create an experience that we can experience as we do it, and after we've done it, and before we do it, that literally brings life to everything I do. Imagine that. And then you see what I mean by that.
You have given me an enlivened existence where I was able to escape the rat race. So today, while we've been talking, I think my team has probably cut, we have 3 stores, or there's 5 stores that are open that cut hair, and I don't have the ability to cut hair. So the barbershop, there's 5 stores open we have. So there's probably 200 people that got their hair cut in the last hour and a half, 2 hours, about 200 people getting their hair cut.
But wait a second, Clay.
Yeah.
That's not true what you just said.
Oh, sure.
You said, I don't have to do anything. No, hear me. You have to be something.
True.
So at the heart of what you've created is your energy. And at the heart of your energy is a love for God.
True.
And at the heart of your love for God is your determination to transform the state of every human being you connect with in whatever way is possible. Economically, socially, spiritually, relationally. What an extraordinary thing to possess as Clay Clark possesses it. And what an extraordinary thing for Clay Clark to pursue with every bit of energy you've got.
I appreciate you saying that, and I want you to know you unshackled me personally. It was a thing where you allowed me to get away from the DJ microphone at these weddings, to get away from the day-to-day operations and the reactivity, to be able to build proactive businesses. So now we can hopefully together mentor millions of people. And you have helped me, and I would love to give you the microphone to share what you're working on now, because whatever you're working on now deserves a Harry Carey holy cow.
Holy cow!
Whatever, because we met in Chicago, so whatever you're working on now deserves a Chicago Harry Carey holy cow.
Holy cow!
So tell us, what are you working on now, sir? What are you doing?
Well, hear me. I want you to think of a university, spelled Y-O-U, university. A university called Radical U. Radical Y-O-U. I want you to imagine awakening the entrepreneur within every human being on the planet. Every human being on the planet capable of studying, capable of working. That's what we created. So we have created a university, an entrepreneurial development university, to take out to the world and to transform the state of entrepreneurship worldwide to a degree that's never been accomplished before. Our university is 5 years long. Our university is devoted to what we call the Eightfold Path.
Wow.
And every student in our university will discover their dream, their vision, their purpose, their mission, their job, their practice, their business, their enterprise. An evolution of an enterprise from a company of one to a company of 1,000, called Beyond the E-Myth. The evolution of an enterprise from a company of one to a company of 1,000. And here's the best part. And you can promote this, Clay, until you're blue in the face. But every person within the sound of your voice needs to understand this, that we're giving the first year of Radical You away for $10.
$10 the whole year?
$10 for the entire year. 52 weeks, 52 video sessions online right now. And every single person within the sound of my voice, or can see my face, or see my Panama hat, or see your jacket, whatever it is, every single human being, I'm inviting them to join us in Radical You. And when those people join us in Radical You, Clay, we're going to bring folks like you, folks like the other gentleman who just said hurrah, folks like every person you're connected with who wants to become a teacher of creativity. You're going to come and join us at Radical You, and you're going to teach something, and they're going to teach something, and I'm going to teach you what to teach. But hear me, that's what we're working on. 5 million students within the next 3 years. And then guess what's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
Apple, the company, is going to acquire Radical You.
Michael, I want to respect your time. I know you're probably taking your wife on a great date tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much, my friend. I really do appreciate you.
Clay, see you in Oklahoma.
This show blows my mind. And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom! Well, you may be considering becoming a client, and I thought, well, one of the best ways to make that decision is to hear from somebody that we've actually worked with for a long, long time. And he's become a good friend, and I'm excited for you to hear his story. Derek Sisney, welcome onto the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great, sir. Thank you for having me.
Hey, so I want to start at the end, and then we'll kind of work towards the beginning here. So in terms of like, how did the business coaching experience impact you personally? Because when I first met you, you were working in corporate America, and then you went to start your own business as a consultant. How did the business coaching change your life or impact your life?
Oh man, it was. I would say the biggest thing that really impacted me was the fact that I had no direction. You know, when you're doing stuff like this. Trying to create a business or trying to grow a business, trying to scale a business or doing anything like that, you're just kind of going through the flow. It's all emotional, it seems like, and you're just kind of guessing and you're hoping that you hit on the points. The biggest thing that I took away, the thing that I learned the most is being organized. Waking up early, right? 4:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, getting up early, getting organized, getting your day set, and being diligent. Oh gosh, that was diligent doer. Proverbs 10:4. Right.
So how would you describe, I mean, if you had to, has it been a positive change for your life? Has it been terrible? I mean, if you were to talking to somebody, they said, how did business coaching impact you? How would you describe that?
So I actually told this to my wife, so my last name is Sisney. It's you and the team have changed generations of Sisneys. So it wasn't just me. It started with me, but not just that, Clay. It impacted in my church. It impacted in the youth group. It impacted at the university level. Across the board, it has impacted every fiber of who I am, everything about me, things that I didn't know was capable, that was even inside of me to be able to do it in the first place, has been impacted. And then my children, I have a daughter who's 11 and a daughter who's 5. I'm teaching them about business. I'm teaching them the diligence, the waking up early, the planning, all those things. So it's been life-changing for generations of us.
Now, I have been self-employed since I was 15. And so you have, you hop into my world, when people hop into my world, I guess I don't even recognize that there's a world out there that exists that doesn't wake up early and that doesn't achieve their goals and that doesn't know what they want to do with their life. That's how I am. And so if you remember, you first heard about me, I think, through a radio show. Can you tell people how you first heard about me and what your first experience was working with me or hearing about me?
Yeah. So I did. I heard about you through the radio show, and I didn't think anything of it. And I was like, okay, who's this guy? Because you hear a lot of get rich quick schemes, all these things. So you just kind of you put you in that category in the beginning. And then I was actually applying for jobs, and I was like, well, I heard about this guy. So I went and I came, and I'll never forget the day that I walked in, and I look around and I'm like, oh man, what did I just walk into? And the music was blaring. I mean, there's all these lights, all this. It looked like, I remember thinking, I'll bet this is how Facebook is. If I was to walk in Facebook, this is probably how it is. And then Daisy showed me around, and she introduced me to you. And I remember you saying these words. You said, "Are you married?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And you said, I think that you'll be a hard worker. Just from talking to me those few minutes, and you said you got the job, and I turned you down. So that was early on. And then I came back 4 years
applying
later.
for a job. That's how you started out, right?
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. And then
Okay,
4 years later, I came back.
You came back 4 years later as a business growth consultant, and you're looking to add some clients and increase your revenue. I'm not asking you on this show to share how much money you ended up making per month, but how much is a percentage, or how many times did we help you increase your income by?
Oh God, honestly, it was priceless. Like it was the percentages. I remember talking to someone. I think it was you. You introduced me to some people as well. I mean, in reality, it was almost infinite. So, I mean, the most money I ever made at one time in a year was $50,000 before ever joining this. And let's just say it was double, triple that. So,
So you tripled your income?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So okay, now just to be clear. So you're saying that you tripled your income, and you learn new life skills, and we've worked together every week. Every week we had a meeting every week. And the purpose of that meeting is to make sure that you know what to do, and that I call it IDS, or identify, discuss, solve. We identify what needs to be done. We discuss what needs to be, so you know what you're doing, and then we solve it. Like, here's the homework. Can you talk to the listeners out there about the importance of having those meetings every week, where a lot of times you might even be going over the same subject, but what's the importance of having that somebody harassing you on a weekly basis about following the systems?
It is so important because people think that they can do it themselves, and some people might have the ability, but to have somebody kind of kick you in the tail. I used to explain it to people is it's kind of like taking a basketball shot. I'm not the best basketball player by any stretch of the imagination, but having somebody who understands the game beside me and watching me take those shots and say, hey, if you just tweak that just a little bit, you could probably make that better, or you can make that shot more, or if you do more shots, right? If you take it from an NBA perspective, right? They'll shoot the same shot over and over and over again. They'll shoot that same shot from that same spot 1,000 times, but that's what makes them so great. And it's the same thing with business, doing the same thing over and over and over again. It sounds repetitive, and it sounds like it's insanity, right? But in reality, it's those small, diligent things that happen for us to grow a business or grow ourselves or anything like that.
Now, you've been able to shadow multiple times. You actually, were in the office quite a bit. How would you describe the impact that shadowing me made on you when you see that I'm actually working within a highly scheduled environment with an actual to-do list? How did that impact you?
It was amazing to be able to see it and actually see somebody do it. A lot of people, including books, they say do this, and then they may not do it themselves, or their leadership won't even do it themselves. That happens a lot. And so watching you and even the leadership and the people inside the building do exactly, and if I remember right, I think it's mandatory for everybody who works in your building. They have to have a clipboard and a schedule. Like, they have to have the clipboard. So I mean, everybody doing that, and it's not a grade, but it's like, where's your clipboard? And they used to call it their brain. So we'd say, where's your brain at? So it was amazing to actually see it implemented and worked on every single morning.
Self-help. You labeled me as self-help there for a minute, and I worry about that because I've met a lot of self-help authors. I've met a lot of them. I won't mention their names on today's show, but people I've met in backstage, at the events. I'm a speaker, they're a speaker, and they're like, hey, how do you do you actually help your clients grow? And I go, well, yeah. I mean, all my clients, they pay $1,700 a month. It's month to month, and they grow. And they're like, yeah, but I mean, really, what's the catch? I go, what do you mean? What's the catch? And these self-help guys, they go, well, I have a program I ultimately signed them up for so they can become a certified coach underneath my program. And that's how they make their money. And they sign up people to long contracts. And that's kind of their game, is to, keep talking people into the next thing. You've been to our workshops, and I don't do that in our workshops. How would you describe the workshops themselves?
The workshops are eye-opening. And it's almost, you could go to a workshop and learn everything that you needed to learn. The problem that I see a lot of people have is they're like, okay, this is great knowledge, but they don't understand how to apply the knowledge. And that's where Clay Clark's wisdom comes in. No, you're not self-help, but you're like, I've already been there. I've done it. If we're looking at it from a biblical perspective, right? It's getting the knowledge, the understanding, and the wisdom to be able to apply it. Well, you can get all the knowledge and you could sort of understand how it works, but and those business shops, workshops actually help to be able to acquire those. But then that next step, if you want to take that next step, it is that implementation, and that's what your team is able to provide.
Now, kind of going line by line, marketing, we'll help you with your marketing, your website, your print pieces, all those items. How helpful was that during that time in your life to know that you had a team that could do the website, the photography, the videography, all of the marketing things in one point of contact, as opposed to having to run around and look for other designers?
It was amazing. It was amazing just to be able to come to you. You were my point of contact, or another coach was my point of contact, and that's my POC, if you're use it from a military term. But my point of contact was you. If I needed something, you were on it. Every week, those weekly 1-hour meetings was like, hey, I need this to get done. In fact, with you, a lot of the times you were able to do it right there on the spot. Like, well, let's get that fixed right now. So
now
it was amazing.
Now, the core repeatable actionable processes, I call it the crap, core repeatable actionable processes. What? Core repeatable actionable processes. A lot of entrepreneurs that aren't successful struggle to bore down, and they struggle with boredom. They go, it's the same thing every week. Oh, man. They want a new idea, a new shiny thing. A lot of men do that with their wives, looking for new girlfriends. That's not a move. A lot of people do that with new cars, always looking for a new car, always looking for a new book to buy. They buy the book. They don't read the book. They just buy books. A lot of people are always looking for a new car smell, a new thing. Can you talk about the importance of having that core, repeatable, actionable processes cemented and gone over every day, just the core repeatable actionable process, maybe the value of that?
You don't like it, so that's the reason the acronym is great. It's crap, right? It's like you're just kind of going through. It's like, I don't like to do this, but the amazing thing is, people, if you're listening to this, is be diligent in the crap. Just keep pushing through. I promise you, if you do what Clay's team tells you to do, it works. It sounds insane. It sounds like it won't work. It sounds like a get rich quick scheme. It sounds like all these things. But doing the crap actually brings progression and growth.
I'll give you the final word there for anybody out there that's thinking about filling out the form, coming to a conference, scheduling a one-on-one consultation. We don't want to waste anybody's time out there who's not a good fit, nor do we want anybody who's not a good, who is a good fit to be turned away. What's the final word you might say to anybody out there that's contemplating becoming one of our 160 clients by scheduling a one-on-one consultation or coming to an in-person workshop?
If you're sitting on the fence, if you're really thinking about it, I would tell you definitely 100% come to a workshop. The workshops are they're priceless. But if you need that kick in the tail and you're like, man, I say I'm going to do this, and you're that hopeful person that's just like, I want to do this, I want to make this happen. Clay's team can actually take you to that next level. And if you're just thinking about it, just do it. Just do it. Give it a shot. I believe that there's no contract. There's nothing. I mean, there's no reason for you not to give it a shot. I mean, that's the amazing thing about it. You have everything in-house right there for you. A marketing team, a coaching team, individuals that are there to help you, even Clay's network and stuff like that. And it's priceless. And if you're just thinking about it, go for it. Just do it.
Now, you and your wife are attending some kind of ministry conference this weekend, which is the whole purpose of growing a business is to create time freedom and financial freedom. So I don't want to get you in the proverbial doghouse there. So my final question I have here before I let you go is talk about the time freedom and the financial freedom of just knowing that you have the ability financially to be able to take your wife to a workshop like the one you're going to, and you don't have to worry about the money.
It's amazing. It's amazing. To be able to not have to worry about that and actually be able to go to sleep at night. In the beginning, Clay, you may know this, and I know the listeners won't. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. I had $0 coming in, and this was right before COVID. So you can imagine, really, it was a leap of faith for me. I joined that program, and I've known you for years, but I joined that program before COVID. And then I don't know if you remember my text messages. I was texting you. I was like, Clay, I'm really freaking out here with all the COVID stuff. And you're like, just take it easy. And then you guys kind of, you coached me along that. And I am so appreciative of that. Just so appreciative of that. But
I think you got a kind of a friendship with Eric Trump out of the deal too. Eric actually reached out and made sure that you were invited to Laura's birthday. That's a real thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
that's
It's
kind of
wild.
fun.
I would have never guessed that.
I would have never guessed. I mean, seriously, he calls me, he goes, hey, is your guy Derek coming? I said, Derek? He goes, my guy, Derek. I love Derek. Is Derek coming to Laura's party? We got to get Derek at the party. So that was kind of fun too. So Derek, Sisti, I really appreciate you. Appreciate all you've done in terms of putting forth the effort. If we're out there teaching people what to do and they don't implement the proven success systems, it doesn't work. You're a diligent doer, and I wish you the best on all the endeavors you're doing right now. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
I can do this, and I will do this. This is what I tell myself each day. I know your choice matters. Because of racial segregation, I wasn't even allowed to use the front door of the bank in Greenville, Mississippi. I remember the back door, but I refused to let that slight cause me to fail. Without the ideal family setting and making a living in the cotton fields of the Delta, I shifted my thinking, and so can you. I imagined possibilities that did not even exist at the moment, but they eventually became my reality. I became a Pulitzer-nominated author, an entrepreneur who helped to introduce Stairmaster exercise system to the world. Now the president and CEO of 2 small businesses and one of the owners of a bank that 50 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to even walk through the front door. The American dream is not dead. Let me say it again. The American dream is not dead. Maybe a jump start is all it needs. So was my success a choice? You better believe it was definitely my choice. You see, adversity, for many of us, is a catalyst that initiates the change. It isn't easy. It's not always fun, but it's a choice. You can do this. No matter what situation you find yourself in, you can maximize your potential. You will meet adversity. Trust me, it will strengthen you. You will fail. It will be lessons learned you will never forget. You will be challenged, but your creativity will amaze you. Get-rich-quick schemes don't work, no matter how enticing. But if you're willing to shift your thinking and make the choice to work hard, believe in yourself, and continually educate yourself, you can accomplish whatever it is that you have imagined. Just imagine the possibilities and be ready to work them into reality. You know, we're excited to help you jumpstart your own success story. Now roll up your sleeves. You can do this. Be your own dream come true. Welcome to Thrive.
Yes, 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 and yes. Aaron Antis, you now run Oklahoma's largest home building company, one of the largest home building companies in Oklahoma.
Yes, sir.
I'm now an entrepreneur with multiple different businesses, and both of us, we both read this little book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah.
20 some odd years ago, and it changed our lives. You were in Michigan.
I was living in my mom's basement in Michigan, completely buried in debt, had no sight of how to get out, no college education, flunked out of college.
And I was at an Oral Roberts University dorm room, had no idea how to achieve success. And I read this thing called the cash flow quadrant. It said we have to become a great employee, and then we have to become self-employed. And then after that, we get to become a business owner. And then we get to become an investor. So here we are. Both of us are investors, and we get to interview the man,
the myth,
the legend who created the cash flow quadrant. Woo! Robert Kiyosaki, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Boy, you guys are already pumped up. I moved to Oklahoma. Anyway, thank you for the kind words. At my old age, to have young people like you saying the book changed their lives is probably the biggest spiritual juice I get. It's because
brother, it changed my life. My life. I probably purchased conservatively 1,000 copies of your book, giving it to folks. And so I wanted to tap into your wisdom on part one about the cash flow quadrant, because we have a lot of people listening to the show that will become the future generation of entrepreneurs, if we can save capitalism in America. Sir, can you walk us through the cash flow quadrant? And I think it's embroidered on the chair behind you.
Sure, it's right there.
There it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But this is my etching of it. And E stands for employee. S stands for self-employed, small business, or a specialist like a doctor or a lawyer. It also stands for smart person. And then B stands for big business, according to the Internal Revenue Service. It's 500 employees or more. But B also stands for brand, like McDonald's is a brand. And brands are very, very valuable assets. And then I stands for investor, but it's actually an inside investor. And so when I was a kid, 10 years old, studying with my rich dad, he would walk me through this and be talking about your mindset. So on this side is my poor dad, go to school, get a job. He was a PhD in education. This is my mom. She wanted me to become a doctor or a lawyer. And I said to my mom, the only problem with that, Mom, is you have to be smart. She says, you're right. I guess you're not going to be a doctor or a lawyer. Because I really didn't like school, And then, so my rich dad was over here, and he was building a massive, massive business throughout Hawaii. So when you go to Hawaii today, if you look at Waikiki Beach, you'll see the Hyatt Regency Hotel. Rich Dad, as an inside investor, assembled all that property, and then another investor took it off his hands and built a Hyatt on it. So I watched both my poor dad and my rich dad. I watched my rich dad get richer and richer and richer, but my poor dad get poorer and poorer and poorer.
Now, I wanted to ask you this, Robert. For somebody out there listening right now, if they're an employee, okay, and let's just, because I'm going back to my 18-year-old mind. I was working at Target, Applebee's, and DirecTV. I was doing a poor job at Target, a poor job at Applebee's, and a poor job at DirecTV. And I read your book, and I'm going, I have to do a good job because I need to be able to get ahead, to become self-employed. What would you say to somebody who's kind of stuck in that rut of they're always late, never getting things done? They're the perpetuating cycle of fail employee right there. What would you say to that employee right there that's kind of stuck in that rut right now?
Yeah, but it goes deeper than that, Clay. The numbers here stand for taxes. So this is worldwide. They're pretty much worldwide. Employees pay about 40% of their income in taxes. The small business entrepreneur pays 60%. Now, when Biden wants to hire 87,000 IRS agents, he's going after this guy here.
Yeah.
These guys are already screwed. I mean, they take their taxes out before you get paid.
Yeah.
But these guys here, the IRS has to go after them. So the small business guy is going to get screwed by Biden. I mean, I hope I'm not Republican or Democrat. Trump is my friend. But these are the guys are going to go after. So what happens to a young person that says, I want to quit my job and start a business? Well, you move into a higher tax bracket. If you understand that thing, okay. And on this side, because you have employees, lots of employees, I only pay 20%. But as an insider, I can pay 0% legally. I don't want to go to jail and become somebody's boyfriend. Whoa. So I want to be an insider all the time. So that's my way of saying I don't own stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. I don't touch anything the stock market pumps out. I don't trust the dollar. I don't trust the treasury, and I definitely don't trust government. So that's kind of why this is so important today, especially today. And with 87,000 IRS agents coming out, you'd better get a great CPA, a tax guy. Okay, that's the big difference.
Yeah. Now, since you brought up Biden for a second, here we'll get into that now. You, I believe, are not only a best-selling author, not only an investor, but I believe you're a man who was kicked out of Freedom Fest. Could you please explain to us, is that true? Am I making that up? Did you get kicked out of Freedom Fest, and if so, why?
What was the question, please?
Did you get kicked out of Freedom Fest?
Yes.
Could you again? You stand for freedom. You come across as a libertarian for me. Why would you get kicked out of Freedom Fest when you were
apparently the person that puts it on, I won't mention his name. Well, he comes after me every time. I won't mention his name, but I have no idea, because I was talking about a stock market crash, and he got very angry at me. He says, "Markets don't crash." I'm going, "Are you kidding me? You know what happened in 2008? What's happening right now?" So my concern is a lot of times things are misnamed, like, the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, has nothing to do with inflation. No. It has to do with the Green New Deal.
Right.
So I'm always concerned when people pump out these things like the Freedom Fest and all that. But I got hammered for talking about how you prepare for a crash. And the reason I say that is because when markets crash, it's the best time to get rich. That's like Neiman Marcus having a sale. So I like crashes, but this guy came after me so hard. He still does. I was up in Vancouver, and he still came after me. He says, "How dare you say markets crash?" I'm going, but they do crash. And so anyway, I really don't know why he's after me, but he's come after me every single time, and he's the promoter of Freedom Fest.
Now, a lot of people have noticed, well, there's a mask mandate, there's a lockdown, there's a quarantine, there's a curfew. There's Biden speaking at the World Economic Forum 2016 event at Davos. There seems to be a lot of chatter related to Klaus Schwab and Yuval Noah Harari. And now people who have chosen not to talk about it or think about it, the Great Reset is here, and it's impacting everybody in some way, shape, or form. Could you comment on what the Great Reset is and how it is impacting American business?
Well, the Great Reset is the collapse of the dollar, the fiat money system. And that's why when I speak, I don't think it's good or bad. I am an inside investor. I'm a real estate guy. I also took this this is my latest accomplishment. It's I took this company public on the New York Stock Exchange. I've taken 3 companies public on Toronto Stock Exchange, but this is my first New York Stock Exchange, and it's the richest gold mine in America. And so I do practice what I teach. But the reason I'm into gold is because the Great Reset will be the collapse of the dollar system. And that started back in 1971 when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. And in 1971, I was in Vietnam. I was a Marine helicopter gunship pilot. And I'm going, what the heck does this mean? We're off the gold standard. And I had no idea. So because we don't teach money at school, and my co-pilot and I flew behind enemy lines to look for gold, proving Marines aren't the brightest guys on earth, But well, I'm sitting there looking for gold from a gold mine, and this little Vietnamese woman with red teeth, they always chew betel nuts. And I was trying to get a discount on gold. So gold was 35 an ounce in 71. And by the time I got there, it was $50 an ounce. And so I tried to get a discount because, behind enemy line discounts. And she looked at me and laughed her ass off, just smiled with the red teeth. She says, spot. I said, what the hell, spot? I got a spot on my shirt or something? She didn't speak English. I didn't speak Vietnamese. But then I realized gold is international money. Gold is real money. And ever since then, I became a gold bug, which is why I'm very happy to take this company public. I'll give you the name of it. I wouldn't invest in it. It's called ODV. You have to do your research on it, but it's the richest gold mine in America. It's 140 years old, and it was just sitting there in Provo, Utah. So there's opportunities everywhere, but I want to be this kind of investor. I don't want stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs that I don't own.
Robert, the name of your gold mine is what now? What's the name of the gold mine investment
Well,
company?
they call it the Trixie Mine, but the call sign is ODV. Just check it out. The reason it's important because the guy who put it together is a Canadian. And I spent a lot of time in Canada and Vancouver putting gold deals together because I'm an entrepreneur. And this guy found this gold mine 140 years old, and he used technology. He looked at it and he got 140 years of records from these old gold miners, the guys with the burro and the pick. And he took all their records and he digitalized it.
Wow.
I'm going, how'd you do that? That guy's really smart, obviously. But he digitalized it. And then once it was digitalized, he could put it into pictures. And he was going through the records, digitalizing all the records of these gold miners from 140 years ago in Utah.
Yeah.
And it says, oh my God, they missed the vein. I went, what? He says they missed the vein. And so that's why the Trixie mine, or ODV, is now the richest gold mine in America. It was sitting there. It was sitting there empty. So there's opportunities everywhere, I'm saying,
Wow. Now, I have two quick questions for you, and then I'm going to go to Aaron here. As it relates to the value of gold, the price of an ounce of gold in 1971 was approximately $40 an ounce. In 1991, it was $360 an ounce. Then you move on to 2011, it's $1,500 an ounce. Now we'll call it $1,800 an ounce. And I think a lot of people want to hear from you right now. On a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 is like you are very concerned about the collapse of the dollar, like if 10 is you are sounding the alarm, you're very worried, and a 1 is you're not concerned at all about the collapse of the dollar. How concerned are you about the collapse of the U.S. dollar, sir?
I'm very concerned. And it's more than just the U.S. There's a thing called the BRICS nations. BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And what happened in 2021, I believe, when we abandoned Afghanistan, on that day, Saudi Arabia shifted allegiances from America, trading in dollars, petrodollars. Saudi Arabia switched sides to China and Russia. It's the end of the dollar system. So the end is near for the US dollar. And my concern is it's going to wipe out stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. Just for my generation, the boomer generation, we're in serious trouble because the only reason our stocks, bonds, mutual funds are up is because the Fed and the Treasury just kept printing more and more money. Instead of fixing the problem from 2008, they just kept printing more money. And it's about to come to an end. So that's why when I say to people, buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin, you want to stay in what I call real assets, tangible assets. That's my opinion. Most people say buy US Treasuries. That's Harry Dent. I wouldn't trust anything printed by the US government, but that's me. I don't like anything that can be printed.
Now, the BRICS nations, again, to repeat for everybody who's hearing this for the first time, you might hear about the BRICS nations. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, Africa. Those comprise roughly 41% of the Earth's population, and they are teaming up together to unseat the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. And now you have Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Nigeria, Venezuela, Algeria, Turkey, and Argentina all teaming up to unseat the U.S. dollar as the world's U.S.
You're on it, man. You're on it. You're on it. Everybody, listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about. You have the macro picture. Very few people have that point of view.
So if let's just say that the U.S. dollar becomes no longer the world's reserve currency, what will happen to the value of the dollar, sir?
Well, I think you were touching on it before. There was this guy, Klaus Schwab, and the Great Reset. And the Great Reset will be the collapse of the dollar. And what's happened with China China's putting in the Belt and Road project. 90% of the population is going to be dealing in Chinese yuan, not US dollars.
Right.
And America is, I hate to say that, the Fed is pretty corrupt. You know, everybody says, "Oh, don't fight the Fed, trust the Fed," and all that stuff. I don't trust them at all. I don't trust anything that can be printed. But that's why I tell the story of being a Marine pilot, flying behind enemy lines with my helicopter, and finding out what gold was. This is 1972. I'm going, holy mackerel! Why don't we teach this at school? So that's my concern. And I commend you. You know, I mean, Kash Patel is a stud, but boy, you know your stuff too. I'm very impressed.
Well, I'll say this, you know, the Reawaken America tour, we have, you know, Eric Trump's on it, Kash Patel, General Flynn, Michael Lindell, Dr. Tenpenny, so many, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And people always ask me, Clay, what is the common denominator between all of the speakers? Because we have Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, entrepreneurs. And I tell people, the reason why we do the Reawaken America tour events and the reason why we have millions of people that stream every event is because we share the truth, and it's embarrassing for Republicans and it's embarrassing for Democrats, and it's called the truth. And that's why I wanted to interview you. Now, Aaron, Robert Kiyosaki, I would call his Ministry of Money has made a big impact on your life.
Massive.
What questions do you have for Robert Kiyosaki?
It's kind of interesting, Robert. You don't know this, but you really changed my life. Back when I was living in my mom's basement back in my early 20s, a friend of mine who was the vice president of one of the largest home builders in the country lived 5 doors down from us, and he handed me your book. And he said, "Aaron, if you'll read this book, it'll change your perspective on life." And I went to grab it, and he snatched it out of my hand, and he said, "You didn't think I was going to give it to you, did you?" He said, "If you go across the street to that bookstore and pay $14.95 for it like I did, there's a chance you might read it. But if I hand it to you, you're going to chuck it in the back seat and never read it." I read the whole thing in one sitting that night, and I got ticked because I had been in college. I had been flunked out of college, and I was living in my mom's basement, broke. And I said, I got to see a different way. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then later the Cash Flow Quadrant. And I've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad about 25 times since then, just trying to like see if there's anything else I'm missing in there. So thank you for that. It allowed me to stay married. Today's my 25th anniversary. It allowed me to stay married to my wife because I was really broke when she met me, and we're doing better now. So thank you for helping me stay married too. So I do have a question for you though. So with all this stuff that's going on, I mean, obviously Clay kind of brought me into the podcast when the Great Reset stuff started happening back when COVID began and everything. Because I'm a guy who's like, I want to go make money, do business. I don't want to be involved in all this other stuff. But I know that China has said years and years ago, decades ago, that they were going to take over America without ever firing a single shot. And I think most people don't recognize that World War III may have already started. And because there's not Chinese troops coming up on the shores of the Atlantic or Pacific in boats, they think there's no war going on. So do you see it as a hostile takeover of China trying to sort of, you know, become the dominant force in the world and coming after us and subverting what America is trying to do? Is that what you're perceiving going on right now?
Well, let's go back to BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa.
Yeah.
Now, the way I started stumbling through all of this stuff was in 1965. I mean, I flunked out of high school twice because I can't write. Ironic, isn't it?
Yeah. Right.
It's not that I can't write. The teacher didn't like what I was saying.
Yeah.
So it's censorship in the classroom, as you know. But in 1965, I go to school in New York. I went to military school. I got nominations to Naval Academy, Merchant Marine Academy, and West Point. Because I'm not stupid. I just don't like school. And so I chose Kings Point in New York, where the highest paid graduates in the world. So I really did want to go to sea. I studied oil, and I drove tankers for Standard Oil when I graduated. But in 1965, my economics teacher had me read this book here. It's called The Communist Manifesto. It's only 40 or 50 pages. But when I read this book, every question you ask me is coming true today. And when I read this book, I realized My father, poor dad, was a communist. He believed in labor unions, abolition of private property. He hated the rich, and rich dad was a capitalist. So the C stands for capitalist here. And so that's where the battle began. And the question is this: the invasion came, according to this book here, came through the school system. So what Marx wrote, he says it would come in two phases, communism. It would come first as socialism, and that occurred in 1930. And in 1930, the communists out of Europe sent teachers to Columbia University. And today, Columbia University is one of the most hard Marxist organizations going. So they came into America via Columbia University Teachers College. So you guys are too young to remember this, but this is 65. 1930 that happened. I'm in school in New York in 1965, and that's when the riots started to come out. We started rioting. So I'm in New York City, and they're rioting. It was students, and that led to Kent State and the protests against the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
So I volunteered for the U.S. Marine Corps to fight for my country. And I came back. I landed at Norton Air Force Base in 73, January 10th, 1973. And I got hit by eggs and spit on and all this stuff by all the students from Berkeley. And they're still up, you know what I mean? And they're so hard left, but it started with this book here saying that it would happen in 1930, that's when they invaded America via the academic system. 2020 was phase 2. And that's when they took down President Trump. How can they censor us via social media?
Right.
And so in 2020 was phase 2 of this book here, written in 1848.
So good. And I have one follow-up question to that. So with, when I read your book and it, talked about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad about, the rich don't work for money and just the concept of the cash flow quadrant and everything with, Joe Biden had done the executive order 14067, which talks about the central bank digital currency on December 13th being enacted and cash money going away. The principles that are taught in the cash flow quadrant, are those principles rolling forward into a digital currency environment we find ourselves in? And if the American dollar goes to the bottom of the heap, as I think, could be happening and the markets crash, do the principles in the cash flow quadrant still hold true moving forward into that America that the Democratic Party, or really the Communist Party, seems hell bent on carrying us into? Whoever's the president right now, and I just assume that's the person writing everything on the teleprompter for Biden, whoever that person is that in that America, do those principles still hold true in the coming days?
That's a tough question, but obviously Biden is a communist.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Look at it's not what he says, it's what is he doing?
Right.
I went at the academy, and military officers in the Marine Corps, we're taught to watch what a person does, not what they say, or actions speak louder than words. And look at his actions. He opens the border wide open. He takes us out of Afghanistan. And the day he pulled us out of Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia pledged allegiance to Russia. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Yeah. So the day Biden pulled us out of Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia shifted the petrodollar from the US dollar to the yuan.
Right.
We got screwed by Biden big time. Just watch what he does, not what he says. So he doesn't say anything anyway, so why bother, Yeah. And that picture you had of him giving that speech with the red behind of him and 2 Marines, that was disgusting. As a US Marine, I would not stand there.
Yeah.
And I would not stand there for that man or Kamala. They're communists, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
I watch what they do, not what they say.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go into a rapid fire 90-mile-an-hour question bonanza here, because you have lowered your standards one time to be on the show. So I'm excited about it. I got you on the show one time, so I got to go for it. Here we go. You wrote in one of your books, you said confidence comes from discipline and training. I wrote that down, put it in my journal. I thought, I'm going to do that. So every morning I like to wake up at 3 a.m. I go to bed at 9 p.m. I've been doing that for 21 years. That really helps me to understand that confidence comes from discipline and training. You don't just have confidence. You have to have discipline and training to earn that confidence. What would you say to any of the listeners out there that are maybe not structured, they're not organized, thus they don't have confidence, and they want to become more disciplined or more organized and get that confidence? What would you say to the listeners out there?
Well, it's crucial. I mean, I've had my challenges with my discipline myself a lot. You know, I mean, I'm very open about it. I was court-martialed twice because I had disciplinary problems, and so I've had my challenges, which is the best thing, because when you make a mistake, you have a chance to correct. So the U.S. Marine Corps did a lot of good for me because I'm a lieutenant, and my roommate and I were both lieutenants on this carrier in Vietnam, and he went on to become a lieutenant general, and today he's a congressman from Michigan, and I got kicked out as a lieutenant. So, but we're still the best of friends. But that's what the Marines say, semper fi. We're always the best of friends. We're loyal to each other, but we all go about different paths. So discipline and all that is good. But the most important discipline is this: if you break the law, own up to it. You know, I broke the law. I got caught flying women in my helicopter in Hawaii, drunk as a swine, having a good time. Whoa! So when they caught me, you know what I mean? I'm going, yeah, I did it, you know, and so
now, were the women in the helicopter drunk, or were you drunk while flying a helicopter?
Well, I was talking to this young woman. She says, "If you ever had a DUI?" I said, "No, I've had an FUI, flying under the influence." Like I said, I learned the hard way, and the biggest discipline is when you screw up, own it, tell the truth.
Yeah.
So I got hauled into a court martial. I sit down there, and it was a prosecutor named Captain Abrams, really sharp guy. And he says, "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" I said, "I do." And I told him everything. I told him everything I had been doing. They never caught me for anyway. You see that movie, A Few Good Men, with Jack Nicholson?
Oh, yeah.
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 That was what Nicholson was on trial for as Colonel Jessup, was exactly the same as me. I falsified fuel records. So in A Few Good Men, Nicholson and those guys falsified the records. So I did the same thing. So here I am, you know, years earlier, on trial in Marine Corps Air Station, Kaneohe, Hawaii. And they caught me flying drunk. I had women's underwear in my aircraft. I had beer cans everywhere. I found a dead deer because I was shooting deer out of my helicopter. And I just sat there and I told them the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But this was my lesson. Okay. So I asked Captain Abrams, I said, "How many years will I go to jail?" He says, "You're free." I went, "What?" He says, "You will receive an honorable discharge. Thank you for telling the truth."
Wow.
And then I said, "Why are you doing this?" He says, "Because we're not after you. We're after your colonel, just like A Few Good Men."
Wow.
And so, you know, this nothing worse than a reformed alcoholic. Well, for me, it's a reformed liar. So I would rather tell you guys the truth than pretend, because screwing up and correcting off of it is the best thing. That's how we learn. So, you know, a baby learns to walk by falling down.
Right.
You learn to ride a bicycle by falling off. And you learn to be a human being by making mistakes. And so that's why academics doesn't work, because they punish you for making mistakes.
Right.
So that's why guys like Clinton, who says, you know, "I didn't have sex with that woman." Well, because he didn't define what sex was. You know what I mean?
Now I got to ask you this, Robert. You know, when I built my first business, it was called DJconnection.com. I don't own it anymore, but we used to do about 4,000 weddings and corporate events per year. And I remember reading in your book, you said that assets put money in your pocket and liabilities take money out of your pocket. And I started thinking, all this equipment that I have in the storage facility, if I don't book the shows and get the equipment working 7 days a week, every day of the week that my equipment is sitting in the storage facility, not generating income, that equipment is a liability. So I need to get my guys out there. I need to do events on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, do some discounted events, and still do the weddings and events on Saturdays and Sundays and Fridays. You know, the big events in the entertainment business are Friday and Saturday, but the rest of the week, I've got to get this equipment out there working for me. Where do most people get it wrong as it relates to their understanding of liabilities and assets? You've done so many workshops. I mean, you've done thousands of workshops. Where do people get it wrong?
Well, that's one of the most important questions you've asked, because in keeping it super simple, right? It's the differences in the definition of words. You see, the question I always ask people, do you speak the language of money? And most people, what do you mean the language of money? I said, and then from, I think it was John, I'm not really religious, but, and the word became flesh. We become our words. So the difference between my poor dad and my rich dad was very simple. My poor dad called and he called liabilities assets. My poor dad always said, our house is an asset. And my rich dad said, your father may be a PhD, but he's calling liabilities assets. And that's where people go wrong. They call something that is not. So most people think they have assets, like their car, their college education, all that. They're all liabilities. And it always starts with the word. And the word became flesh and dwelt amongst us. So if you don't, the best news is words are free. You change your words, which is why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, assets versus liabilities. It changed your life because you started saying, well, maybe I'm calling liabilities assets. So most people say, well, I have an asset that's an SUV. That's a big liability. I own a house. That's an asset. No, it's a big liability because you got insurance, you got taxes, you got all that stuff on it.
Both Aaron and I, Robert, both Aaron and I employ, many employees. That's what we do. And, Aaron, I'm sure you have an additional question about this, but I want to hammer into this real quick. Here's, I see an employee, they have a degree from Oklahoma State University, or, they'll come to me often from University of Florida, some college. They show up, they've got $100,000 of debt. They've got a monthly student loan payment. They're driving in an SUV with a massive monthly payment. And they show up and they say, so how much are you guys going to pay me? And they have no discernible skills. And most of them have a degree in business. And so when you wrote in your book, you said, I am pro-education. I'm just anti the system. And I've heard you say it in many ways, shapes, and forms. I understand what you mean, but there's people listening right now who have an SUV with a massive payment. They have a college degree with no actual practical skills, and they have a lot of degrees, more degrees than a thermometer, but they have no practical skills. Could you clarify what you mean when you often say, I'm pro-education, I'm just anti-system?
Well, it goes back again to the question I always ask is, what does school teach you about money? And for most people, it's nothing. The next question is, do you think that's a mistake? I mean, do you think that's a mistake, or is it intentional? So that's why, I talk about my book, Capitalist Manifesto, this book here. And this is the book I wrote this year. And it's in response to the Communist Manifesto. But listen to this, okay, is we were warned. I'll say it again, in the Communist Manifesto by Marx, he said communism would come in two stages. Stage one was 1930, when Columbia University was taken over by communists and still is communist today. Dennis Prager, he calls Columbia one of the worst places you can go to. And then, so in this book here, Capitalist Manifesto, it says, we were warned. He says, this is from Nikita Khrushchev, 1959. He says, your children's children will live under communism. You Americans are so gullible. No, you won't accept communism outright, but we will keep feeding you small doses of socialism. And that's through our schools until you finally wake up and find you already have communism.
Right.
We will not have to fight you. We will so weaken your economy until you fall like overripe fruit into our hands. Nikita Khrushchev, 1959. This book is nothing but quotes from Stalin, from Marx, from all these guys. But the problem is most academics, like my poor dad, never read the Communist Manifesto. So they do not know they're communists.
So good.
Aaron,
I had a question about, you had a quote where you said that, you really all you need for success, and I'm paraphrasing, but really all you need for success is simple math skills and some common sense.
There we go.
And so, when my wife and I actually taking that last quote you just used, my wife and I basically homeschooled our kids. And we did that so that they wouldn't get indoctrinated, because they're not public schools, they're government schools. And so we wanted to make sure they learned a love for learning so that they would continue to educate themselves after the fact, because we're very pro education. And so we've created children that are like that. But what happens is, people start studying certain things. And when you go down a certain path of study, you get more and more and more specialized, which makes it harder and harder to turn into a B or an I, in my opinion. So what are the things, you said common sense, which isn't that common, and simple math skills, you can be successful. What are the things that, you would spend time on studying and learning? Because obviously you're a lifelong learner as well. Where would you go to get the learning that you need to be successful, if you're our listeners out there?
Well, that's a great question. Again, let's go back to book number 2, The Quadrant. Yeah. You're talking about the specialist. So what academics do, you go to, you become a doctor, you're a general practitioner, then you specialize. You're an orthopedic surgeon, hearts, you just keep getting more specialized. But you get trapped in here and you pay the highest taxes. You can't get out. Yeah. So when I talk to parents, and I don't have kids, so I really have not qualified to talk to them, I said, the difference is your child a golfer or a football player? And you see, the thing that we're taught in the Marine Corps is Marines fight as teams. When I flew in, we flew in with flights of, the gunships were 4 gunships. We always fought as a team. And when I talk to people who are golfers, they want to do it by themselves. There's nothing right or wrong about it.
Yep.
But a golfer is here. Yeah. And a team player is out here. So I'm not the smartest guy, but I hire very smart specialists. I employ these guys. My tax guy, he wrote the book Tax-Free Wealth. He's Tom Wheelwright. I don't pay taxes, and I don't want to become an accountant. I just call Tom up, and that's he's a specialist here.
He's the golfer.
He's actually a triathlete, which is even more nuts. But anyway, yeah. But he's a great team player. And so in school, being a team player means you're cheating. I was very cooperative in school. C stands for capitalist, cooperative, all that stuff. But in school, they want you to take the test on your own.
Yeah.
So this is my. I asked my accountant to write this book. It's called Tax-Free Wealth. Yeah. Because as I said, 87,500 IRS agents are coming after this guy here.
Right.
And then why are they going to pick on this guy? Because they can't afford to fight the government. For me to fight the tax man, I have to have good accountants and attorneys.
Right.
So these guys here are not going to be touched, but the 87,000 IRS agents are going after this person, all the small business owners.
Yeah.
Robert,
that's what's happening today.
Yeah, a lot of people that listen to our show, previous to this whole Great Reset nonsense, we were #1 on iTunes 6 different times. And so we would interview folks like, Damon John or Wolfgang Puck, and they would hop on the show. We'd talk about business. And so a lot of our listeners have avoided talking about anything related to the Great Reset. And recently, many of them have texted me, which caused me to reach out to you, because they texted me and they said, dude, Robert Kiyosaki just talked about the Great Reset on his show. And they said, dude, Robert Kiyosaki's talked about the Great Reset on like 10 of the past 40 shows. And so I'm going to cue up this little audio clip here. This is Klaus Schwab, who I didn't vote for. I don't believe anybody that we know voted for him, because he's not elected. He's the head of the World Economic Forum. And in 1971, the World Economic Forum was founded by Klaus Schwab per the recommendation of Henry Kissinger. And in 1971, America got off the gold standard per the recommendation of Henry Kissinger to Richard Nixon. A lot of weird stuff happened in 1971, but this is Klaus Schwab. Let me hit play here.
With all the current issues on our agenda, we tend to forget that we are in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution, which accelerates global change in much more comprehensive and faster ways.
So, Robert, many people don't know the Great Reset is even happening, yet it is impacting virtually every aspect of everyone's life. Could you explain the pressures, the factors that you see attacking the US dollar, just so that our listeners can understand from your perspective, what are the pressures that you see coming against the US dollar right now?
Well, I think you all got to it pretty quickly. You said in 1971, Klaus Schwab popped up. But that was the same year Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. And in 72, I was flying behind enemy lines in Vietnam looking for gold. And then I realized that the way they're going to get us in many different ways, they're going to get us through disease. And so I've had COVID, so I know it's real. I just don't know why they're censoring us about it. That's what I don't understand. And but I can't believe then they take they censor Donald Trump, and he's a very good friend of mine. He's a good man. We've written 2 books together, and he's a very, very good man. So again, it goes back to 1971 was Klaus Schwab. 1971 was Tricky Dick Nixon taking the dollar off the gold standard. And today we have the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia, South Africa. And as what happened in 2020 was when we lost Afghanistan. Exactly at the same time, Saudi Arabia pledged allegiance to China and Russia. And that's oil. And the reason I can speak about oil with some degree of authority is I went to the Merchant Marine Academy in New York. My major was oil. So I don't own oil stocks. I don't own Exxon or BP. I own the oil wells. And I own the oil in the ground. And this is the difference. So when Biden took the XL pipeline off, canceled it, the rich got richer, because I was selling oil back then at $30 a barrel and immediately went to $130 a barrel. So I went to $130 a barrel, the rich got richer. I never made so much money, and most of it's tax-free. They don't tell you that because it's oil. But unfortunately, mom and pop, the middle class, got destroyed when oil went up. The poor will always be poor. I hate to say this, but unless a poor person really wants to do something, they stay poor. But what happened when Biden took the Exxon pipeline and XL pipeline offline, shut it down, as you guys from Oklahoma know, because I own a lot of oil wells in Oklahoma, the middle class was toasted. He's screwed. Again, is what does the guy do, not what he says.
Yeah.
So when he took oil offline, meaning basically shut it down, the middle class went poor. So we have the rich getting richer, the poor remain poor, but today the middle class is getting poorer. And that's the Great Reset starting to come about. But again, it goes back to, as you guys talked about, in 71, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, but 71 was the rise of Klaus Schwab. Was that an accident? I don't think so.
Do you see a way back to the gold standard for our nation? We keep getting asked this question a lot, and there's a lot of people who have said, well, if Trump gets elected for the third time in a row and gets into office this time, then, maybe there's a way to get America back on the gold standard. And if not, what do you see as a way, if Robert Kiyosaki was elected as the president of the United States in 2024, how do we fix this system? Because we're headed towards communism, and capitalism is really the system under which America receives a lot more blessing, it feels like. So what do you see as happening there?
Well, the question, when people ask me the same question, will we go on the gold standard? I ask them, well, who doesn't want us on the gold standard? And that's what Trump was trying to drain the swamp.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want us on the gold standard? One of them is the Fed.
Right.
Number two are the banks like Wells Fargo, all those characters, Bank of America, and third, Wall Street. You see, who doesn't want us on the gold standard?
Yeah, it's some powerful people.
And so when I talk to people, I said, well, don't wait for the government to take care of you because they're already screwing us. Do you know what I mean? So if the government's always screwing us, why don't you go on your own gold standard?
That's good.
So that's why I tell the story of flying behind enemy lines in Vietnam to look for gold. And that's why I think I showed you this here. This is my first New York Stock Exchange. This little piece of gold here is 671 ounces per ton. It is the richest gold mine in America. It's 140 years old. It's called the Trixie Mine. I'm not trying to promote it because you got to do your own due diligence on it. It's ODV, call sign. But I'm on my own gold standard. I don't want the government to dictate that for me because they don't want me on the gold.
Let's talk about your gold mine for a second and just gold in general. Okay. And I'm not making this a shameless pitch for your company because I frankly haven't researched it enough to be able to speak positively or not positively about it. All I can say is that I've looked into your career and I've benefited greatly from what you've taught me. But years ago, Robert, I met with a gentleman who owned a bank. He owns a bank. And I sat down with him and I said, I'm doing well. I'm 25, 26 years old. I'm making good money now with my entertainment company. What should I do with my money? And this is the owner of a bank. He said, step one, do not put your money in a bank. And I'm going, what? You own a bank. He said, I only own a bank because it allows me to borrow money borrow money from the Federal Reserve. And he said, Clay, the Federal Reserve is not federal. There is no reserve. So I can borrow money from the Federal Reserve that they don't have. And I can lend it to people like you at a profit. But he said, you need to take a quarter of your cash and buy gold and silver, a quarter of your cash and buy land or property from emotional people that need to sell it. He says, look for people getting a divorce. When you see the clothes burning in the lawn and someone's yelling at their husband, get out of here. That's when you make an offer. He said, so buy real estate from emotional people with a quarter of your cash, buy gold and silver, and then take your other half, keep it cash on hand for your next business plan. And I thought, oh, wow. So I read The Creature from Jekyll Island. I started researching the Federal Reserve and I started going, oh, wow. So I have just been buying gold and silver consistently since that time. And I've seen the value of what I've purchased has tripled. And I've been buying real estate from emotional people who need to sell it. What would you tell people out there? What should people be doing with, let's say they have $500,000 of cash in the bank account? What sort of things or what mindset should people have with managing their cash?
Well, first of all, I don't give financial advice because I'm not registered to do that, and you should listen to me anyway. But I just tell you what I do. I don't trust anything that can be printed. So if you can print it, I don't want it. So that's why I say I own oil in the ground. I don't own Exxon or BP or Shell. I own cattle because you can't print cattle. I own real estate, which I use debt for, because that's what happened in 71. The dollar came off the gold standard and dollar became debt. But I gave a guy like Dave Ramsey, who says live debt free. That's good advice for 95% of the people.
Right.
But if you want to use debt, you've got to study. And most people, as you know, are too lazy. They're not going to study. So that's why, I created my cash flow board game and all this stuff. Excuse me, you got to have a financial statement. My bankers never asked me for my report card. My bankers asked me for my financial statements.
Right.
And the average person has no idea what a financial statement is because they went to school, they're PhDs like my poor dad. You know, the school teachers are coming out of Columbia University, which Dennis Prager says is one of the worst schools in America. But meanwhile, I just kind of stay off the beaten path and I invest in what the Fed and the government cannot print. It's that simple. So I like Wagyu cattle, not because I'm a cattle guy, but I sell the semen. And, you know, that's sperm flow, cash flow. You know, I mean, you know, if the Fed could print semen, I'd be out of that business. So I only invest what they cannot print. And that's my personal strategy. Everybody should find their own strategy. I also use debt. So let's say I have an apartment house and I buy it for, let's say, 20 million. I fix it, it goes to 40 million. Most people would flip it, you know, oh, I got 20 and went to 40 million. Well, if you flip it, you have a tax. It's called capital gains. So what I do is I borrow out the equity. So it's like a refi. So I get a $40 million property, went from 20 to 40. And let's say I borrow 10 million out. All that debt is tax-free.
Right.
And the property pays for the debt, not me. And then I reinvest in other properties. I buy more breeding bulls. You know, I always wanted to be a Japanese breeding bull, but I never made it. So anyway, I own the bull and I sell the semen and I get a percentage off the calf.
Wow. Now, Robert, I'm going to pull up a final thing I wanted to do here. And this is, you know, you have a lot of people in our culture today that are passive aggressive. And then there's people like myself who are just aggressive. We have these things called the Reawaken America Tour, where your friend Kash Patel, General Flynn, Eric Trump, Mike Lindell, many great entrepreneurs are at these events. And I'm open invitation to you. We're doing these all across the country. And what we're doing is we're sharing with people the truth about what's happening. And you have my promise, I will not kick you off the stage. And I will not ever kick you off of the event, like off the lineup, like Freedom Fest did to you. So if you want to join Kash, I'm telling you, we're going to Pennsylvania here. Every one of the event has what, Aaron, 4,000 to 5,000 people. They're all sold out.
Yeah, up to 10,000.
And we stream to millions of people. Each one, the biggest stream we've ever had was 7.1 million people streamed the Tulsa event. And the average one has about 2 million people streaming, 102 streaming partners. So open invitation. If you want to join us, we'd love to have you. You can think about it, but I just want to tell you, you're open. You're invited to come to any of our events. No censorship, no editing, no teleprompters. And I know Kash is joining us in Pennsylvania. So it's my open, aggressive invitation. You are invited to come join us on the Reawaken America Tour, should you feel the need, sir.
Well, if Kash is there, I mean, I only met him for about a couple of days. The man's a stud. I mean, I was going.
And Kash told me, and we talked. Awesome. I just talked to Kash today. I just talked to Kash, and I told him what I'm plotting, what I'm planning. I'm telling him, and I really do believe. So I prayed about it. I've thought about it. I've talked to Aaron about it behind the scenes. And again, each one of these events, your people will be there. We'll buy everything you could possibly sell us and more. And we would love to have you. So again, open invitation. I can talk to your team if you want to join us. But we're going to Pennsylvania in October. It's almost sold out. We'd love to have you, sir.
I'd be honored. You know, as the Marines would say, Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
Okay, well, I'll reach out to your team to see if we can make it happen. And again, thank you.
Her name is Sarah. She runs my life. And because I'm getting worse than Biden. You know, I have no memory anymore. But, so I sometimes double book things, and she kind of keeps me straight.
Yeah.
We all need one of those.
Well, sir, I'm going to give you the floor here. Final 60 seconds. People take notes. I know they're going to go to richdad.com right now. I know they're going to be purchasing a copy of Capitalist Manifesto. I know our listeners are readers and note takers. They're going to buy Capitalist Manifesto. I know they're going.
If somebody out there still doesn't own Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what are you doing? Go buy
the
book.
Come on.
We just told you how much it changed our lives.
Sir, we'll give you the final word. What would you say to all the listeners out there?
Well, the most important asset you have lies between your left ear and your right ear. You know, it's your brain or your mind, whatever you want to call it. But you've got to be very careful who puts information in there. You know, is the person going to, you know, if it's like my poor dad, I wouldn't listen to him. And if the person is an entrepreneur and all this, because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I listened to him. The same as when I was getting ready to go to Vietnam, my teachers were real Marine pilots. They actually came back from combat. And so I was preparing in Camp Pendleton to go to Vietnam, and I chose the instructor very carefully. I wanted to know who the best instructor was, the best Marine gunship pilot. And that guy, I said, just trained the heck out of me. So the most important thing is choose your teachers wisely.
Yeah.
Very much choose your teachers wisely. There is nothing more important than this, what's between this ear and that ear. And be careful who your friends are. There's people out there who are Judases.
Yeah.
Who will screw you. And
we know
that happens a lot, unfortunately.
Robert, this was better than I possibly could have expected, sir. And I'll tell you, the only thing that was unexpected for me, I knew it would be good, is your glasses are much more incredible than I thought they would be. You've got some great glasses there, sir. You have good glasses.
I have, at my age, I got to do anything.
All right. Hey, thank you, brother. We'll be talking to you soon, okay?
Thank you. I'll be honored. I'm honored to be on your program. So thanks, Cash-All. Thanks to the Cash-Alls.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Gabe Salinas, welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
I am wonderful, Clay. I'm glad to be here with you today.
And just to give people a little context, how long have we worked with you in your business, sir?
A little over 3 years, Clay. We've been together for a little bit of a journey now.
And I think we picked the best of times and the worst of times to work together. I mean, it's like right at the peak of the geopolitical craziness. That's when we started working with you. But you've continued to grow. What kind of growth have you seen over these past 3 years? Just so the listeners know that you do have, in fact, a business that can navigate through difficult times.
Well, we have over doubled our business here at Window Ninjas since working with you. I actually went back and looked through our numbers, and I looked at some of our goals that we had set in the original conversation that I had with your team. And we have surpassed my original number that I wanted to hit with you guys. And I was quite shocked at how, I won't say easy, but systematic it was for us to be able to get to where we wanted to be.
The number of new customers that we've had is up 411% over last year. We are Jared and Jennifer Johnson. We own Platinum Pest and Lawn and are located in Owasso, Oklahoma. And we have been working with Thrive for business coaching for almost a year now.
Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to share some wins with you guys that we've had by working with Thrive. First of all, we're on the top page of Google now. Okay. I just want to let you know what type of accomplishment this is. Our competition, Orkin, Terminex, they're both $1.3 billion companies. They both have 2,000 to 3,000 pages of content attached to their website. So to basically go from virtually non-existent on Google to up on the top page is really saying something. But that's come by being diligent to the systems that Thrive has, by being consistent and diligent on doing podcasts and staying on top of those podcasts to really help with getting up on with their listing and ranking there with Google.
And also we've been trying to get Google reviews, asking our customers for reviews. And now we're the highest rated and most reviewed pest and lawn company in the Tulsa area. And that's really helped with our conversion rate. And the number of new customers that we've had is up 411% over last year.
Wait, say that again. How much are we up?
411%.
Okay, so 411% we're up with our new customers. Amazing.
Right. So not only do we have more customers calling in, we're able to close those deals at a much higher rate than we were before. Right now, our closing rate is about 85%, and that's largely due to, first of all, like our Google reviews that we've gotten people really see that our customers are happy, but also we have a script that we follow. And so when customers call in, they get all the information that they need. That script has been refined time and time again. It wasn't a one and done deal. It was a system that we followed with Thrive in the refining process, and that has obviously the 411% shows that system works.
Yeah. So here's a big one for you. So last week alone, our booking percentage was 91%. We actually booked more deals, more new customers last year than we did the first 5 months. Or I'm sorry, we booked more deals last week than we did the first 5 months of last year from before we worked with Thrive. So again, we booked more deals last week than the first 5 months of last year. And it's incredible. But the reason why we have that success is by implementing the systems that Thrive has taught us and helped us out with. So.
Some of those systems that we've implemented are group interviews. That way we've really been able to come up with a really great team. We've created and implemented checklists that when everything gets done and it gets done right, it creates accountability. We're able to make sure that everything gets done properly, both out in the field and also in our office. And also doing the podcast, like Jared had mentioned, that has really, really contributed to our success. But that, like I said, the diligence and consistency in doing those and that system has really, really been a big blessing in our lives. And also, it's really shown that we've gotten the success from following those systems.
Yeah. So before working with Thrive, we were basically stuck. Really no new growth with our business. And we were in a rut, and we didn't know.
The last 3 years, our customer base had pretty much stayed the same. We weren't shrinking, but we weren't really growing either.
Yeah, and so we didn't really know where to go, what to do, how to get out of this rut that we're in. But Thrive helped us with that. They implemented those systems. They taught us those systems. They taught us the knowledge that we needed in order to succeed. Now it's been a grind. Absolutely, it's been a grind this last year. But we're getting those fruits from that hard work and the diligent effort that we're able to put into it. So again, we were in a rut. Thrive helped us get out of that rut. And if you're thinking about working with Thrive, quit thinking about it and just do it. Do the action, and you'll get the results. It will take hard work and discipline, but that's what it's going to take in order to really succeed. So we just want to give a big shout out to Thrive, a big thank you out there to Thrive. We wouldn't be where we're at now without their help.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark Moore. I'm a pediatric dentist. Through our new digital marketing plan, we have seen a marked increase in the number of new patients that we're seeing every month, year over year. 1 month, for example, we went from 110 new patients the previous year to over 180 new patients in the same month. And overall, our average is running about 40 to 42% increase month over month, year over year. The group of people required to implement our new digital marketing plan is immense, starting with a business coach, videographers, photographers, web designers. Back when I graduated dental school in 1985, nobody advertised. The only marketing that was ethically allowed in everybody's eyes was mouth-to-mouth marketing. By choosing to use the services, you're choosing to use a proven turnkey marketing and coaching system that will grow your practice and get you the results that you're looking for. I went to the University of Oklahoma College of Dentistry, graduated in 1983, and then I did my pediatric dental residency at Baylor College of Dentistry from 1983 to 1985.
Now, the BRICS nations, again, to repeat for everybody who's hearing this for the first time, you might hear about the BRICS nations. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, Africa. Those comprise roughly 41% of the Earth's population, and they are teaming up together to unseat the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. And now you have Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Nigeria, Venezuela, Algeria, Turkey, and Argentina all teaming up to unseat the US dollar as the world's US.
You're on it, man. You're on it. You're on it. Everybody, listen to this guy. He knows what he's talking about.
Hi, I'm Ryan Wimpy.
And I'm Rachel Wimpy, and the name of our business is Tip Top Canine.
Our business is a dog training business. We help people with behavioral issues and teach their dog how to listen. When I was learning to become a dog trainer, we didn't learn anything about internet marketing or advertising or anything at all. Just dog training. And that's what's so great about working with Clay and his team, because they do it all for us.
So that we can focus on our passion, and that's training dogs. Clay and his team here, they're so enthusiastic. Their energy is off the charts. Never a dull moment here at Thrive.
We've been working with Clay and his team for the last 5 months, 2 of which have been our biggest months ever. 1, our biggest gross by 35%. Clay's helped us make anything from brochures to stickers, new business cards, new logos, scripts for phones, script for email, script for text message, scripting for everything.
How I would describe the weekly meetings with Clay and his team are awesome. They're so effective. It's worth every minute. Things get done. We'll ask for things like different flyers, and they're done before our hour is up. So it's just awesome, extremely effective.
If you don't use Clay and his team, you're probably going to be pulling your hair out, or you're going to spend half of your time trying to figure out the online marketing game and producing your own flyers and marketing materials, print materials, all the stuff like that. You're really losing a lot as far as lost productivity and lost time, not having a professional do it. It's has a real sense of urgency and that actually knows what they're doing when you already have something that's your core focus that you already know how to do.
You would also be missing out with all the time and financial freedom that you would have working with Clay and his team.
We would recommend Clay and his team to other business owners because they need to be working on their business, not just trying to figure out the online game, which is complex and changing daily. So, and no one has a marketing team too. Most people don't, they can't afford one, and their local web guy or a local person that they know probably can't do everything that a whole team and a whole floor of people can do in hours and not just weeks or months. There's a definite sense of urgency with Clay and his team. I used to have to ride other web people, really ride them to get stuff done, and stuff is done so fast here, and there's a real sense of urgency to get it done.